Hello, friends. Rosie here again. Uh, what we're about to go over is just a small little topic. It's basically what you don't understand about Hex Undying. Okay, this is mostly meant for Survivor players. I want you guys to understand why nerfing Hex Undying isn't going to do anything, and the reason why this is important is I see a lot of people clamoring online saying Undying's OP and Nerf Hex Undying. Like what you don't understand is that this perk, unless they give it a total rework, it's here to stay. And I would like to explain to you guys why. Okay, so after Ruin was taken from us early 2020, taken from us because I actually think Ruin is superior to what we were doing before. So like what we're doing now is actually probably better than what we were doing before. But anyway, let's talk about what we started to do afterwards. Take a basic killer. Let's take Bubba. What killers were starting to do was everybody knew that Pop was about to become the backbone of the killer metagame. So this perk was basically slapped on everybody, and any build that you could really take seriously had Pop Goes the Weasel in it, because this was the best thing in the game at stopping gens. Okay, the next thing that the probably the meta. Now, obviously, I was of the opinion that hyper slowdown was actually the meta for a little bit, but I've come to believe that I was wrong back then. Now I constantly change my opinion because I'm constantly thinking about this game. So barbecue chili, and then early game shit, corrupt intervention, and then basically on one perk for your character. That's what it would probably be. Bubba has bad map pressure, but like you could also run this on Leatherface. Infectious. Discordance was another good choice on Leatherface because it would just tell him where to go, help him get places. So like you could, but obviously, but my main point about this is that most killers would not stray too far from this setup right here. They would not stray too far from corrupt, pop, and barbecue and chili. So basically, when you really look at it, because Pop Goes the Weasel was so frequently used anyway, because people back, especially when they had synergy, back when Ruin and Pop Goes the Weasel had an increased synergy, like a build would look like this, like all the they would a build would look like this, because corrupt intervention used to be a joke, right? I mean, it was always good, but like when we had Ruin, there was no reason to ever run it. So like you would use pop, and then you would have one more perk for your character. So again on Bubba, you could you can even throw on corrupt intervention or a discordance, or if you really want to even be tricky, you could throw on. Of course, you could run the basement stuff like agitation on Leatherface, bamboozle for the windows. So again, these options are still there, but like back in the days of Ruin, like when you could really rely on the gens or play with your food. Play with your food. Nemesis was a good Bubba combo, right? So like sometimes you would even forego pop for this on Bubba back in the day. Like this is something that Bubba would run back when Ruin was the thing that you would use to actively stall the gens. This was a very common post Oni build once everything got going with it, and play with your food Nemesis on Bubba became official. But like that's just for Bubba. But this is a perfect example of why Bubba was one of the weaker characters in the game, because needing play with your food Nemesis to an extreme degree after Ruin was hit. But let's talk. So when Ruin was hit, this is completely off topic, but I don't even care. When Ruin was hit, as you can see, this would have been good back in the day, because Ruin was your early game and your gens control perk for the most part, and then the idea was that you were already winning by the time that Ruin was gone. But like that's Bubba. See, the weakness of Bubba is he needed two perks. He needed two perks. Whereas on fucking Freddy, you could run this. You could run Corrupt Pop Barbecue. And then I think it's a common opinion that Discordance was a super good choice on Freddy. So basically right here, this right here is a very standard build right here. You would have Corrupt Bot Barbecue and then one perk that synergizes with your character's power, in this case being Freddy. So we could go on all day about what different killers were doing during this more troubling time for the game, honestly. But then they took the God loops out, and then like the stuff has been getting better. Well, we will say that. So this is kind of what killers were doing when Ruin was taken out of the meta. Now Ruin was still a gimmick. Like if you like, it could be Freddy. Oh, I'll trust Discordance to act as my early game perk, and I'll throw on Ruin for a game and see if it does anything. Like, Ruin was still like a gimmick. It wasn't like trash tier. Like it was still a gimmick. But the thing that has catapulted Ruin into the meta is Undying, and we'll have to go over why. A big weakness of this strategy right here, but what the biggest weakness of the Corrupt Pop Barbecue strategy is that any progress on a generator that gets done is just there. It's just there. So like you could find a survivor and they could have the generator halfway done. They're working on it with their buddy, and which, as we know, is a broken generator speed from 80 to 46. That 50% is done, and there's nothing you can do about that with a setup like this. And so, like when you would get your down, you could go pop it, but any other gen has that progress just done. Like there's nothing you can do about the stupid shit. Like that's the biggest weakness of this type of strategy, is that it leaves a lot of gen progress on the table as it is, because Pop Goes the Weasel is limited by the fact that you need downs to make it happen. And if you have downs, this is something I was worried about as soon as they said Ruin was going away. Pop Goes the Weasel needing a down to like do something makes the perk inherently limited, and also makes it so your plays are already kind of working as it. So like there's a lot of issues with Pop Goes the Weasel. See Scott Junn's analysis of Pop versus DS for more information on that. I don't feel like I have to go into that very much. Okay? So we have this setup right here, and we have a perk in Hex Ruin that kind of fixes this, but is not reliable enough to actually make happen. Okay? However, what we have now is a perk in Hex Undying that is helping the consistency of your Hex Ruin. Okay? And this is something I always said was going to be really, really good. Once we even heard about Undying in the first place, is that Hex Ruin and Undying have now become the backbone for what killers do. Okay? And the reason for that is what killer's trying to do, and this was always the case with killer, even with the Pop Goes the Weasel meta. Even with the Pop Goes the Weasel meta, killer was trying to win the game off of one play with snowball pressure. That's basically what killer was trying to do. Otofu loves snowball pressure, but he tells us every video. But like the game isn't balanced. But yeah, that is what killer is trying to do. They're trying to win off of one play. Basically, what Pop Goes the Weasel was there to do in the Pop Goes the Weasel meta was hit enough gens until that snowball play happens. So that's what you were trying to do. Just hit enough gens until you find the big opening to make happen. Basically, what Ruin does is you find a gen that's halfway done, one survivor's on it. You push the survivor off, and if they loop, especially if they loop near the gen they were just at, you can the double regression can have the generator gone by the time you get the down. Okay, so like you're down, the act of downing somebody near that generator's jungle gym has negated that gen a piston and a half already. You just lost 40 seconds of progress because of Ruin. Granted, I don't think you would lose that much because Ruin's only 1/20th of what you guys' number is, which base regression's Base regression is 1/40th of what survivors can do in, I forget what True's number is. It's like what they can do in 10 seconds, base regression takes 40 to take away. Ruin is what survivors can do in 10 seconds, Ruin takes 20 seconds to get rid of, which is way better. So like if a chase takes 40 seconds, survivors lost, what is that? I don't even know. The point is you're losing a lot more progress a lot faster. Okay? And the fact that we have a perk here that is acting as a hex defense because it's a decoy totem, and even if you get to the right totem, Ruin, if you even get Ruin, it just shifts to another dull totem. What this does is it makes it so if you want to get rid of Hex Ruin, you have to get Undying first. And I think everyone understands that by now, and that's why survivors are clamoring for this to be changed. But the most lenient change that you would do to Undying, of course without reworking it, if the devs rework it, this is not relevant, but if the devs even give it Oatsvara's nerf of where if you get Ruin even once and then get Undying and they both go away, this isn't going to affect the usage of Ruin Undying. Ruin Undying is here to absolutely stay 100%, because Ruin is just too valuable. What Ruin is doing now, and like the fact it has so much synergy with the win off of one play meta that killers are doing right now, and the fact they just save time, it saves a lot of time. It makes base regression better. It puts more active pressure on the survivors to get on gens. It lets you know who's like. There's so many benefits of Hex Ruin right now, and the fact when it's in the game, you're just completely way more powerful, which is something that I can't even say about the old Ruin, because if any good survivor was on the gen, they could just fucking power through it. This new Ruin is the only effective answer to SWF in this entire game, because SWF had no problems with the Pop Goes the Weasel meta. And to be fair, SWF high level doesn't have a lot of problems with the Ruin Undying meta either. They don't. But like, there's more of a chance now. If you nerf the consistency of Ruin Undying, it does not affect the usage rate of Ruin Undying. It will affect the consistency of Pop Goes the Weasel. That's what it's going to affect. Because right now, what's happening right here is that Pop Goes the Weasel is the backup. If people are reluctant to trust this Ruin Undying combination because it's RNG. So what they're doing is they're slapping Pop Goes the Weasel as a perk that is a backup for Ruin Undying. Right now they are. If they nerf the consistency of Ruin Undying, it will encourage more killers to do this. It's not going to encourage killers to take Ruin Undying out of their builds. It's going to encourage more usage of a nerfed Pop Goes the Weasel to be slapped in their builds, along with what nerfing Ruin Undying is going to do is cause less branching out. It will cause more problems with builds. It will cause the perk to be used. It will cause Pop Goes the Weasel to be used more. It's not going to affect this because the core of the game right now has too much synergy with what Ruin and Undying are doing together right now. Nerfing Undying is not going to do anything. It's going to affect the Pop Goes the Weasel usage rate. All that's going to happen is more killers are going to, okay, Ruin Undying is slightly nerfed. I'm just going to throw Pop Goes the Weasel in there as a backup, and then I'll throw on Barbecue. Or then I'll throw on Surveillance. Killers are rotating right now obviously, different characters do different things. So, some killers use Infectious, some use Nurses, but like, no matter what killer, the perks that are rotating right now through killers' top 10 perks, every killer has these perks all in their top 10. Undying, Ruin, Pop Goes the Weasel, Surveillance, Corrupt Intervention, Barbecue Chili, those 6 perks. Undying, Ruin, Pop Goes the Weasel, Barbecue Chili, Corrupt Intervention. And obviously, Discordance is still a sleeper pick. Discordance is still very good. Let's say the best for last. Infectious, like it obviously depends on the killer. We could be here all day talking about that. But the core of killer revolves around those 6 perks. And some people are trusting Ruin Undying enough right now to take Pop Goes the Weasel off their build and maybe look something like this. So, but if you nerf Ruin Undying's consistency, all you're going to do is make Pop Goes the Weasel see more play. That's all you're going to do. Unless, of course, you give Undying a complete rework, which the devs will do. And I just don't think people understand that about this perk. If you want to leave... if anything, you should encourage the killer to throw all their eggs in this RNG-based meta. Because if you get lucky that day, you won't have to deal with the Pop Goes the Weasel that game. If you keep this as strong as it is right now. And again, survivors have Detectives, Hunch, Small Game, all those tools in the world to deal with this meta. All the tools in the world to deal with this developing concept. There's no reason that survivors can't handle this. And all you're going to do is, if you nerf Undying, you encourage more killers to throw the fallback option on their builds. Which will probably lose you more games than win it. Because if Ruin Undying... it even does one play. All the killer needs it to do is one play before they don't care, and Pop Goes the Weasel can clean up the rest. So, like if you get Ruin Undying in 40 seconds right now, the killer is less likely to have their fallback option on. So if you nerf Undying right now, you might make killers stronger. Oh, make dumb killers stronger, because right now good killers are already realizing it's not reliable against top-level SWF, and they're already throwing on Pop Goes the Weasel as backup. But encouraging mid-level killers to do that might not be what you guys want to be trying to do right now. And, I don't know, just something to think about. Just something to think about as you keep clamoring for Undying nerfs.